What's up, nerds? Welcome back. I'm going to apologize right out of the gate if I slur any of my words or if I sound somehow affected. I just took 3 rapid fire shots in succession because I already recorded this video once before, but for whatever reason, my microphone decided it didn't want to work today and it just cut out on me. So there was no audio. So here we go. Take 2. Alright, so let's get into the actual topic at hand. I needed a little bit of a palate cleanser because I've been covering pretty much exclusively DC and Marvel, aside from a few like independent stuff, but I've been pretty much just covering like the mainstream stuff, so I decided why not go ahead and like switch it up. We'll talk about something from Dynamite. Granted, Dynamite doesn't have the best reputation because they decided to virtue signal to everyone and say that, you know, we're not associated with Comicsgate, nor would we ever be associated with Comicsgate. Alright. I get what y'all were doing, but alright, calm down. Anyway, so let's get into what we actually have here, because this is going to be their take on like Vampirella as she's exploring different universes of herself and meeting different incarnations of herself. I normally criticize stuff like this from like the mainstreams, but that's because companies like DC, who is more guilty of it recently, they do this thing where they have like, oh, here's old Superman, here's young gay Superman, here's our 2 black Supermen, here's Asian Superman, and they all use the same name, hoping that by giving them the name of the well-established character, that's going to allow them to, you know, jumpstart these new characters and make them popular too, except it hasn't happened. Not for a single damn one, and for a reason. But let's get into what we actually have here, because the thing is, this is actually handled differently. Instead of just giving us different tokenized versions of characters, we actually get different incarnations of Vampirella who are all Vampirella. So as you can see from this cover, I got the voodoo. Like, it was such a hard decision to find, because, you know, Dynamite, they always put out a million covers, but the majority of the time there were only like maybe 1 or 2 that are pretty good. This time they actually had about 4 or 5 that I was actually trying to decide between, but I decided to go with this one because she just, look at her, she looks amazing in this. Not only does she look evil, she's beautiful. And that's the other thing. Like, they actually draw this character looking beautiful. Like the way that we've always known comic book characters to look, that's actually how they draw it in here, and that's appealing to everyone. You know how I know that? Because even my boyfriend, who's full-on gay, I'm the bisexual one, he's full-on gay, and he loves to see women look like this too. You know why? Because he recognizes beauty. He has no, like, sexual or romantic attraction to them. Everyone can just appreciate beauty in whatever form, and that's what we want to see in comic books. I don't want to see someone who looks like my fat ass trying to deal with these situations, because I know I probably couldn't deal with the overwhelming majority of the problems that superheroes actually deal with. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying it's a good thing when we actually get that. But let's get into the actual story here, because we're seeing this thing where we're starting out with this particular Vampirella who's kind of saying, like, you know, this wasn't how it was supposed to happen. We were supposed to win and everything. And then while she's saying that, she's like, what was it all for? Tell me. Because she's talking to like this other force, and all of a sudden we see this thing who I'm assuming is going to be the driving force for this particular story, but they tried to go about it in a very meta type of way, because this person is saying, fear not, your pleas have traveled out into the ether and they have touched me. I am the artist, and I weave the fabric of creation into realities. So many worlds, so many stories being told, with countless more yet to be spun, and all with one common factor, you. My greatest creation. Throughout the myriad tales that make up the fabric, you are the knot that holds the weave together. You ask what it was all for. Your story was told, and this is the end. But in truth, it is only the beginning. You will tell the others what I have shared, so they will not fear the end. You will reaffirm their beliefs and put their minds at ease as the end of their stories near. You will be my messenger. And so this is where we see like a bunch of like other looks for, and this is what I'm saying. They're all different Vampirellas, but you can tell they're all Vampirella, because there's a robot one, there's like a 50s housewife. Like, they have different versions of it, but they're all very obviously Vampirella. And so that's why I'm saying, like, this is what I'm talking about. They didn't just tokenize it and like, oh, look, here's the black one, here's the Chinese one. Like, they didn't do any of that. They're all very obviously Vampirella. Granted, one of them was a robot, but anyway, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's actually somewhat interesting. I don't need you to just give me different like race swapped versions of a character and tell me, oh, well, in this universe it was like that. No, just stop. Stop destroying and diluting your own character by giving them versions of themselves that they don't need. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this one actually did well. So we go on to this Vampirella, who's apparently going to be like our actual protagonist here. And it goes on to talk about how she fought against Nyx and then she ended up losing. She was killed and everything. But that brought her back to here. She's basically in the Garden of Eden. It says, with her death, she was rewarded with paradise, returned to the garden from which she was born. Daughter of Lilith, the first wife of Adam, and mother of all things monstrous. Vampirella was the key to her mother's redemption, sent from the garden out into the world to defeat the forces of darkness in her name. And in death, mother and daughter were reunited in the place abandoned by the Creator with the fall of Adam and Eve. So, of course, we're talking about the Garden of Eden and all that crap. But yeah, apparently, like, they have Lilith here, and instead of looking monstrous, she's almost more like Mother Gaia, the goddess of the earth. So Vampirella comes up to her and she's telling her, or Lilith tells Vampirella, something stirs the firmament, ripping through the shrouds of reality. Something is coming. And Vampirella asks her, like, what does this mean, mother? I don't understand. What is coming? And I hadn't noticed this until right now. Is it because I'm drinking? Is this a superpower? Anyway, so the thing, look at her companion, right? Blue. Look at her companion. Oh, brown. Why? No idea. Just whoever was coloring this lost their goddamn mind for a second and forgot to color this one blue and made it brown instead. So that's where we see Lilith says, yeah, something is here. And then there's this other Vampirella who comes through a portal and is saying, Vampirella, hear me and listen well, for time is of the essence. So it says that change was coming for her. So she's telling her, like, the fabric. She says, yes, the stories, the fabric, but we don't have time for this. Listen to me. The entire weave is in danger, a threat that could result in the very unraveling of our realities. I'm just going to go ahead and say, this one is the new Vampirella. The one in the hood is old Vampirella. So new Vampirella says realities. You talk as if there were more than one. I don't understand. So the old one says the weave is comprised of infinite threads. The Vampirella's purpose has always been to protect the fabric, for we are the knots that hold it all together. So she's like, Vampirellas? There are more of us? So that's where the old one's telling her, a Vampirella for every thread, yes, but we are in danger. Someone is killing us. And if the Vampirellas fall, she's like, what? And then that's where they see, like, the villain is ripping through into this reality as well. So she comes through and says, knock, knock, anybody home? So the old Vampirella says, damn it all, I thought I would have more time. Quickly now, take the book. So she tries to, like, hand her this book of Vampirella, I guess. And then the villain is coming up and saying, how nice of you to be here together. Two birds with one stone, so to speak. God. That vodka was good, though. Anyway, so she says, the new one says, I'll do no such thing. Eden is under my protection. And then the evil one, or Lilith says, yes, it's under my protection as well. So she, like, makes the earth itself start rising up against them. To which the evil one says, how quaint, the land itself tries to stop me. So Lilith is telling her daughter, Vampirella, the new one, like, you need to go, the danger is too great or whatever. I can't, like, hold them off. So that's where we see, like, the evil one is starting to, like, fight back. And then old Vampirella says, you can't let her have you. Please go. We must do all that we can to prevent her from becoming the only. So that's where, yes, if you're wondering, yes, this is an evil Vampirella. They do not make you guess that for very long, because by the end of this issue, they do reveal that. So this is an evil version of Vampirella wearing, like, power armor or whatever. And she says, dearest Vampirella, thread after thread, I have pursued you across the fabric. You have fought the good fight for long enough. Why prolong your fate? So this part, I do have to preface this by saying I'm an animal lover. I'm a huge animal lover. I love everything about, not like that. Calm down. Get your head out of the gutter, you sicko. Anyway, I do love animals, 100%, even if they're fictional. I don't like to see animals die. So that's why it made this particular interaction somewhat heartbreaking when Vampirella, or the new Vampirella's companion, goes in to, fight against the villain. She goes in and saying, like, I must help my friend, but the old Vampirella's like trying to dissuade her from doing so. And then we see this where she wasn't fast enough getting to help her friend, and as a result, the evil Vampirella literally just decapitates her companion and then is just holding the head up in victory. So I hate to see that because, like I said, as an animal lover, seeing the death of literally any animal, even if it's mythical, it couldn't possibly exist in our reality, it still makes me sad. I don't like to see it, especially when you have them like doing this like heroic type of thing. Granted, I don't hate it. I'm not mad that they put it in the book. It definitely serves as a driving inspiration for this Vampirella, but it bums me out. I will say that. So good on them for that. They actually got a genuine emotional reaction from me. I should be calling them bitches for that, but the fact that you got real emotions out of me, kudos to you. So anyway, Lilith tells the new Vampirella, like, you need to leave. I can only delay them for so long. And then the old one says, take the book. She cannot achieve her demented goals without it. But the new one says, and go where? Eden is my home, my paradise. I must stay here to defend it. So then the villain one presses the attack. And then the old one says, I will not let her have you or the book. And she just pushes her through like a portal or whatever. So the villainous one comes up. And she's telling her, like, oh, you know what? Or the old one is saying, like, you know what? It's okay because she's the best of us all, or she's the fiercest of us all. And so she will be the one to thwart you. And so the evil one is saying, like, oh, yes, but you know what? There's something different here. Unlike every other time, you didn't escape from me. So she goes up to her, and this is where she's saying, yes, but she did. She is one of the fiercest of us all. She will be the one to stop you. And she says she will try. And she will fail, like you, and all the others. So that's where she kills her, and then we see where the new Vampirella has ended up. She ends up in this, like, sort of deserty type of place. But all of a sudden, we see that the book has apparently transformed itself into some sort of hologram of, like, a little boy or whatever. And we can see this where, like I said, they actually draw Vampirella looking beautiful. Like, this pose right here, sexy as hell. Can't deny it. As a bisexical, I'm turned on. But anyway, so she's saying, okay, book, maybe you can explain what in the seven hells is going on. What are you? What is this book of prophecy? So it tells her, oh, that's an easy one. The book of prophecy is all the threads, the stories about Vampirella throughout the weave that make up the fabric. So she asks, why are there so many stories about me? He says, that's because the artist loves you so much and loves telling stories about you. So the artist came up with more and more and more. Some of the threads have finished. Some are just beginning, and some have been going on for a really long time. So, I mean, I don't know if this is like Dynamite's way of trying to appropriate every story of Vampirella by saying like, oh, well, they're actually all folded into this greater universe here. Because the thing is, Vampirella is a public domain character. Now, granted, if you were to try and take one of the stories that Dynamite has told of Vampirella and build off of that, they would actually be able to see you because they do own their own stories that were told of her. If you were to just take the character and have her be like, an alien like from Dracula, the way that her accepted continuity is, you could absolutely do that and start telling your own stories because she's a public domain character. They don't own her, they just own the stories they've told about her. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if they're doing this as some sort of way to say like, actually, we own all of it, because now we're saying all those versions of her are valid under us. It could be, or it could just be them like being able to tell whatever story they want of Vampirella. We'll see how this shakes out in the end. But anyway, the book is telling her Bloodwing learned about the artist and the fabric and didn't like it one bit. Oh no. So the new one says, is that the reason why he was channeling your Vampirella? But the book says, my Vampirella was just doing what the artist wanted her to do. It was her mission to explain all about the fabric to the other Vampirellas whose stories were coming to an end, because we can see this one where I guess she was talking to a Native American based off of how she was dressed and the fact that those are American bison. So he's saying Bloodwing didn't like what Vampirella had to tell, but she asks, why didn't he like what your Vampirella had to say? And this is where the book corrects her and says, Bloodwing's not a he, and she was like all the others, not sure what her purpose was as her story came to an end. So Vampirella's like all the others, who is she, book? And the book says, I would have thought you'd have guessed by now, as we can see this thing where they're like burning Lilith to death. So it says, she is you. So like I said, this is where they reveal it, that yes, this is an evil Vampirella wearing like a suit of armor and everything. So I don't know. We'll see what ends up coming from this particular thing. It's an interesting concept. Like I explained, like I'm willing to see where this goes, because it's not like with DC where they're just trying to like be like, oh, look, we're doing this story, but it's actually so we can introduce different versions of Vampirella that are just race swapped or sexuality swapped or whatever, you know what I mean? Because that's not interesting. It's not interesting at all. This whole thing where they're going to try and give us like different versions, like I said, there's the 50s housewife Vampirella, there's the robot Vampirella, there's even one, I had such trouble deciding between the covers, because there was another one that had like a 50s sci-fi, like atomic age type of looking Vampirella. I almost got that cover, but then I went with a voodoo priestess here because I like magic and she looks sexy as hell. So there's that. But yeah, I don't exactly know where this story is going to go. I do know that I'm interested to see where it goes, because as far as like multiverses type of thing is concerned, I do think this is the better way to handle it. It's just different incarnations of your own character in different themes. You know what I mean? Instead of like each universe is a different race of the character. No, it's like each one is a different theme. Like I said, there was the robot, there's the sci-fi one, there's the 50s housewife one, there's this like magic one, there's another one that seems to be like the one that we seem to be following seems to be a little bit more biblical. So I mean, there are just different versions, but if you look at any single one of them, you can automatically be like, oh yeah, that's Vampirella, as far as you know who the character, as long as you know who the character is. So I mean, I'm at least excited to see where this goes, especially considering it has a woman being drawn very beautifully. I know fans are usually accused of wanting to just jack off to this stuff, but no, I'm in a relationship. I can literally have sex whenever I want. So the thing is, I'm excited to see where this is going to go, because the story itself already seems interesting. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But if anybody out there has actually read this, I would love to know your thoughts on it. Where do you think this story is going to go? What are your thoughts on Vampirella just in general? Do feel free to share those with me down in the comments below. But if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like the video. Make sure you are subscribed. And if you would like, go ahead and share out the video to anyone you think needs to hear what I have to say. But if you're done here, then go and read a book. And if not, then I will see you on my next video.